How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? Data here, and welcome to the long-awaited 100% guide to everything scouting in NHL 23 franchise mode. Over the last few years, this has been a huge topic here on the channel. My most viewed videos and most interacted with videos in the comment sections are those in which I'm breaking down all the scouting. It's been a tradition that I do these videos every NHL game the last few years. I was thinking about not doing it in NHL 23 because I didn't really think anything really change. But after, and I'll get into this in the video, after one of our channel members, Discord server members, left a comment with his scouting style, it turned the game upside down. So in today's video, I'll be touching a little bit on the pro scouting, but mostly about your amateur scouting in franchise mode, and how to quite literally have the top 200, 250 plus prospects fully 4-bar scouted. Fully scouted with their potentials, their player types, their strengths, weaknesses, everything, if you follow this system. So as I always say at the beginning of these videos, franchise mode can be a bit of a unique experience, especially in EA land, where sometimes things are happening certain ways with your franchise I didn't exactly get into in the video. So please do leave a comment if you have any questions throughout this guide, any of your suggestions on your own scouting, any comments that you want to clarify on something that I said. So leave a comment, I'll get back to you right away, or you can leave a message over on the Discord server, link in the description. We're a few hundred members in the server. I say that just about all of us love and play franchise mode, so your questions would receive an answer in the server as well. But without further ado, I will now bring you through everything to do with scouting, whether you already be in your franchise mode or you're starting off a brand new franchise mode, everything that you need to know to get as many players as possible fully scouted, which is a huge bonus. It's almost game breaking. I almost wouldn't make a video like this because of how much it breaks the game. It takes a lot of work, but it's almost as if you're turning off any surprises. Like, you know what these prospects are because of this system. So we'll go ahead and get started. I usually use Le Canadien Montréal when I do a tutorial video or something along those lines. So I'll go ahead and select the Montreal Canadiens. And of course, as always, please do leave a like if this video is helpful for you. And consider subscribing for much more franchise mode content here on NHL 23, MLB The Show 23, and much more. Take a second to check out the channel. We'd love to have you, and I'm sure that you would enjoy it. Now, when it comes to the main settings, these are the ones you cannot change when you are in your franchise mode. You don't need to touch anything. If you like to play with morale on, if you like to play with fog of war on, that's okay with you. But I would recommend playing with owner mode turned off. More than recommend, I would highly recommend it, because with owner mode turned off, your budget is turned off. Now, if you want a good scouting staff, by the within the first few years of your franchise mode, you're hiring better scouts every off season. You're going to be paying them $100K plus each. Some of them up to $220,000+ per year. So if your budget is like 1.8 million, you're going to need 3-4+ million, and that's why. And the budget doesn't really increase, even though the salary cap goes from 80 whatever million to 120 million by the end of your franchise mode. Your staff budget doesn't really increase proportionally. So I like to play with owner mode off so that the budget does not play a role. I can hire whichever scouts I want. In my own personal settings, I also turn player morale and fog of war off. Now, with fog of war turned off, it kind of takes away the need to do much professional scouting. In the past, I've kept maybe 16 amateur scouts and 4 professional scouts out of the 20 scouts that you can have, because those 4 professional scouts could scout for line fit and things like that. But now that line chemistry is pretty much just who has X factors and who doesn't, it takes away the need to really scout players. So it basically comes down to, if you have fog of war turned on, you could keep some professional scouts to just figure out things like player attributes. But if you have fog of war turned off, there really is no need to have any professional scouts, because line fit really doesn't matter when all that matters is X factor when it comes to line chemistry. Personally, I wish I could use fog of war. It's a cool idea in theory, but I won't get into it too much. It's just that, yes, it makes sense that I shouldn't know everything about some random 77 overall player, but it can't be that I need to go scout Connor McDavid for 2 weeks to figure out how good his passing is. And I have to go scout Alex Ovechkin, who's been in the league for 15+ years, to just figure out what his shooting accuracy is after 2 weeks of scouting. It shouldn't be like that. So it frustrates me a bit, to the point that I think it's just too much work. I turn it off, morale off, all that stuff. Morale also could play a role in your scouting, but again, a system that's just a bit too broken for me. One guy's injured, you keep him out of your lineup for a day so that he can heal, then he gets upset that you didn't play him, and then now he's demanding a trade. No, I just want to play a simple franchise mode. I want it to be difficult, I want it to be challenging, I want it to be fun, I want it to be immersive, but I don't want it to have me pulling my hair out. Now, those are the settings you got to change before your franchise mode, but if your franchise mode has already started, you can go ahead and check out the quick settings, either at the starting page of your franchise mode or in the settings of the mode itself. The only thing you want to do is make sure that auto staff management is turned off. If it is turned on, the computer will not allow you to even go and look at the pool of available scouts when you want to hire new ones. So make sure it's turned off. That way you can go to the hire staff screen. And for auto scouting, you have 4 choices. No auto scouting, pro scouting only, amateur scouting only, or both pro and amateur scouting gets done automatically. Personally, I play with pro scouting only, but I don't actually ever really keep any pro scouts, so it doesn't really matter. Really, it's none. But if you have to choose something, just make sure you don't press amateur scouting only or both, because then that'll auto scout the amateur scouting, obviously. You want to be in 100% control. Now, if you're playing your franchise mode and you can't be bothered to do all this scouting, because it is a long process, I won't lie, you could set everything to auto, and that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. When it comes to the draft, you'll still have a good idea of who's who, especially if you go by the central scouting rankings, but it is not even close to what we will be seeing today when you do the scouting yourself. So I'll go ahead and put pro scouting only and auto staff management turned off. Once you're done the quick settings, you can exit and go over to the advanced settings. Something that was new to NHL 22 and now continues in NHL 23 is that you are able to control the generated prospect quality and the draft class quality every year. Now, if you're starting a franchise mode, you can go ahead and set it how you like. If you're in the middle of a franchise mode, it won't affect the current draft class, it'll affect the class of the year after. That class is generated by the game every September 13th. When the preseason begins and you go into a new year. So make sure, if you're in the off season, June, July, August, make sure you set this how you like it before the game creates the next season of prospects when the September preseason rolls around. The draft class quality basically means the depth of the draft. Low means you have your high-end players. Medium means that you have some better players throughout. And high means you'll have maybe a top 10 of players that could all be top 5 in another year. You could have a lot of gems throughout. Medium still presents a good number of gems. I like playing with medium usually. Same for generated prospect quality. Low means you could have the first overall pick being a guy who's just a normal medium elite 79, 80 overall player. Medium means you'll likely get that medium elite player who's 82, 83 overall, maybe even a franchise player. And high generated prospect quality very often means that you'll be getting a franchise player, at least one franchise player to go first overall. So I do usually keep it on medium. I find that's just a good balance. But I do, in my own personal franchise mode, also do a random number generator. Sometimes I'll go to Google, I'll say random number 1 to 100. If it's 1 to 20 or 1 to 30, however you want to do it, you could say that it's low. Then 20 to 80 or 30 to 70, you say medium. And then 70 to 100 or 80 to 100, you can say high. That way you can kind of just mix it up and keep it fresh, or you can just keep it medium forever. Also keep in mind that as you go on in your franchise mode, the league will become populated by the players that are generated in the draft. So if you always have high, well, after a few years, the league will be much higher scoring. If you have low, well, then after a few years, the league will be more low scoring. The stars of the league won't be as high quality as the stars of the league of a high multiple year franchise mode. Of course, in the 2023 draft, for example, you have a lot of real players. Connor Bedard goes first overall, etc. But if you start high right away, you could see generated prospects coming in and maybe even being drafted on top of Connor Bedard. So keep that in mind. Also, the fact that real world prospects are only going to be in the drafts for the first 3 years or so. The generated prospects start right away in year number 1, but starting around year number 4, that's when the draft class will become almost all, if not all, generated. So once you have all those settings ready to go, remember, if you're starting a franchise mode, they'll be in quick settings and advanced settings. But if your franchise mode has already begun, you'll have to go over to the League tab and click on Settings. From Settings, if you go click on Rules, that is where you'll have the ability to change the draft classes. If you scroll down, You'll see medium for the draft classes, draft class, all that stuff, and the auto scouting and auto staff management right there. So in the start of a franchise mode, you got the quick settings, advanced settings, but in the franchise mode, you just got to go to rules. If you want to know about any of those other rules or settings or anything else of franchise mode, you can go ahead and check out the 100% guide to everything franchise mode. That's a video that's already been done here on the channel. But once you're ready to go, whether you be in a franchise mode already or starting off a brand new franchise mode, what I would recommend first is going to press on Assign Scout and checking out your scouting staff. Now right away you see that you only have 17 out of 20 scouts, so we definitely want to be hiring some. And we can also see that there are amateur and there are pro scouts. The NHL and the AHL, it's not that I want to fire all the professional scouts, but I want to fire all the scouts with low ratings. Now, if I click on the options button here on PlayStation, it brings me to the hire staff screen. From here, I see, oh, there's a bunch of C-rated scouts. I can definitely go ahead and fire all of the D and E-rated scouts. I don't want any of these guys. You can make do with low-rated scouts, but if I can go from E and D- to C, then I will absolutely do so. Over time, you go up to B, then to A+ scouts, but to start your franchise mode, you'll definitely be in that B and C range, but you don't want to be in E and D. So I would go ahead and fire all of the E and D. And then once I'm done that, I actually now evaluate my staff. So now that I'm left with this staff, I'm going to go ahead and look at the region efficiency. Some of these guys are A+ efficient, some of these guys are A- efficient. Which thing matters more, region efficiency or overall? The overall matters more because the biggest thing, although overall does grow over time, region efficiency can grow quite quickly. A scout could go from B- to A efficiency over the course of a season, while it might take multiple seasons for them to go up a letter of overall, if ever. So for example, if I have this scout here who is C overall but A+ in the region, I would rather have a B-rated scout who is A- in the region. Because that B- scout is better in overall, and after a season or two max will also be A+ in region efficiency. So the region efficiency will grow over time. The overall is what matters most. So once you have your scouts, like I said, you want to go into checking out what their region efficiencies are, because their overalls won't change from what they are at this moment. Clicking R3 and looking at their little tableau here, pressing R1 and scrolling down, I can see where is this scout best. A- in the OHL, A in the QMJHL, and nothing else really good anywhere else. So this scout is best suited for the QMJHL. He will stay there. USA West, A+, yep. Also A+ in the WHL. Good to keep in mind in case you need to move scouts around later on. USA East, this guy's best in the USA West, but I already have someone there. So I may as well keep him in the USA Central or East. This scout has an A in Liga, but A+ rest of the world. What you'll find out later is that rest of the world prospects are almost never generated, so I would not send any scouts to rest of the world. You might get one prospect every few drafts, so not really worth it. I would keep the scout in the SHL or Liga, good. This guy, A- OHL, but that's where he is best suited, Desmond Wilkinson, so he'll stay in the OHL. This guy, SHL A+, he's also A+ for Liga, Allsvenskan, and the NLA. Very good to have a scout like that on your staff. And finally, this scout who is A+ in Russia, also A+ in Liga. Again, good to keep in mind. So thankfully, I don't need to change anyone's region at this time. But if I had to, for example, the guy who's A+ in the SHL, he's also A+ in Liga, I would press on triangle to change his region, and then I would go scroll over to Nordic, and go ahead and select Liga. I would click on that and press confirm. I don't know why it always says it takes 2 hours, but there's no time involved with scouting. I could press confirm. I'll even do it. Confirm, and then from there I can go ahead and scout right away. Scout specific players, and there you go. So I don't know why it says 2 hours, 6 hours, just some sort of immersion thing. So all right, cool. So at this point I have my staff ready to go. I have 7 out of 20 scouts and I need 13 more. So I can either press options again to go to the higher staff screen, or I can exit out and go from the trade and improve tab where it was assigned scout and go over to the manage contracts tab and click on hire staff. Now remember, this hire staff button will not be available if you put your staff management to auto. Make sure that it is manual. Now click on hire staff, go from hire coaches, press L2 and scroll down to hire scouts. And I would sort by overall first and foremost, just to make sure, yeah, E's are at the bottom, C's at the top, there you go. Now at the bottom, I can see scouts active, 2 in the USA, 1 in the OHL, 1 in the Q, 2 in Nordic, and 1 in Russia. I would like to have, looking at the full breakdown right here, I would like to have 4 scouts in the USA. 1 for West, 1 for East, 2 for Central. 2 scouts in the WHL, 2 scouts in the QMJHL, and 3 scouts in the OHL because of how there usually are more prospects in the OHL. In the Nordic, I would like 4 scouts, 2 in the SHL and 2 in Liga, 2 scouts in Russia, and then 3 scouts in Europe, 1 in Dell, 1 in the NLA, and 1 in Extraliga. As you will see over time, there are almost never any prospects in the rest of the world. After year number 1, I believe there are no prospects in the Allsvenskan. So maybe for year number 1, if you want to put a scout over there, but in the future years, there are 0 prospects in the Allsvenskan from year 2 onward. Unless something has changed I'm not aware of, but there are 0 scouts in the Allsvenskan after year number 1. And in Europe, in ice, there are very rarely any prospects at all. So if you want to dedicate maybe 1 scout to ice for 1 month every 3 years for that 1 prospect who made the top 200, you could. But keep in mind, ice, rest of the world, Allsvenskan, very rarely you'll send any scouts there. Really focus on those locations that I just mentioned. If you want to add in professional scouts, it's not my recommendation, but if you do want to do professional scouting, I would say just have a couple, 1 for the East, for the 2 divisions in the East, and 1 for the West, the 2 divisions in the West, and you would take 1 scout away from the OHL and 1 scout away from the USA Central to do that. If you want more than just 2 professional scouts, you want 4, maybe you take 1 away from Europe, and then maybe 1 away from another region that has less prospects that season, but it will likely play with the results that you get from this tutorial that I'm telling you, which does need 20 amateur scouts if you want to get fully uncovered details on as many prospects as possible. The less amateur scouts you have, the fewer number of prospects may be scouted. So once all that is understood, I can start hiring scouts to fill up my staff. It is important to sort by overall and look at all scouts. For example, if I say, okay, I want an OHL scout. I go to OHL, I start scrolling through some OHL guys to say, oh, this guy's an A- OHL scout. Meanwhile, over in the QMJHL, this scout here is technically listed as QMJHL, but he's A+ in the OHL. So don't think about what's this guy's region. You can change his region. So I'll look at all regions and sort by overall. So you got to sort by all regions and start to think about what do you need. For example, I need 2 more OHL, 1 more QMJHL, and 2 more WHL. So I start scrolling through everybody. I don't care. A+ QMJHL. Yves Levesque. This guy is AHL. Doesn't matter. Now I want to hire that scout. Personally, I never touch the years. It would be nice to go to 8 years, so I don't need to think about signing him in 4 years. But it's best, especially when you're dealing with free agents, to give them exactly what they're looking for in the number of years, or else another team might do that and then they steal them away from you. Also, if your budget is turned off, you can offer them a max contract, and they will always, 10 times out of 10, it's never happened to me that a scout did not sign with me when I offered them the max deal available. The max I can offer this guy is $160K for 4 years. Budget remaining $2.643 million. You can totally disregard that, and you can offer the contract. 4 years at $160K, that scout will sign on. You can continue to sign these free agent staff members with 100% certainty that they will sign on. Again, it's never happened to me that they didn't. So I can continue now. If I have 1 QMJHL, and this is my 2nd QMJHL scout, I'm done with the Q. Now I'm going to say, okay, I have 1 OHL scout. I need 2 more OHL scouts. Even though they're AHL or whatever else. Scroll until I find A+ in the OHL, or at the very least an A or an A- if there's no other options. I saw 1 A. I'm not seeing any A+s, and now I'm starting to get too low in the overall. Now I find an A+ in the OHL. Okay, he's still C-rated, no problem. Mathieu Gervais, we'll go ahead and sign him up. He will be an OHL scout. And then as long as they're C-rated, I will find another scout who's A+ in the OHL. If it starts moving to C- into the D, then I'll go back for the guy who was rated A. Here's another A+ OHL scout. He's still in the C overall. Perfect. I'll go ahead and offer him a max deal. There you go. I now have 3 OHL and 2 QMJHL. What I'm going to do now is go through all of the scouts and do the exact same thing again to make sure that I have 2 more in the USA, 2 more in the WHL, 3 more in Europe, 2 more in the Nordic, and 1 more in Russia. And for example, if you don't want to scroll through all the scouts, you can often go, let's say I needed an OHL scout. I could have just gone to the OHL and scrolled through and seeing if anybody was A+, because all the scouts are C rated. But when in future years, when you have a lot of A- and A+ out there, it'll make sense to go from the top. In year one, where everyone is C rated, you can probably just go to the region and check it out, and then worst case, you come back to the main screen. But let's go ahead and do all that hiring now. And keep in mind, just because you have your, quote, starting lineup in mind, this guy who is OHL A-, if I can find another C-rated scout who's A+ OHL, it's almost a lateral move, but to go from A- to A+ is still worth your time. So if I go back to OHL and say, okay, I already offered contracts to 2 OHL scouts, so if I can find another C-rated scout who's A+ in the OHL, that would be great. This guy's A+, but he's a C- scout. That's when I would go back to all regions and say, okay, let me take it back from the top again, and I'm looking for anyone who's A+ in the OHL and still C-rated at the very least. There's this one right here. What's this person's name? Dorian Reyes. C-rated and A+ in the OHL. Perfect. So even though I had my starting scout, I already had one who was A+ in the OHL. That scout was C-. You want to upgrade your scouts everywhere you can. So Desmond Wilkinson, fired. That's another one that I can improve on. Same thing for USA East and this Liga scout. And even this QMJH, actually the QMJHL scout, this guy's a B, so I'll leave him. But for anyone who's C-rated, I would definitely go into looking at that. Even for this guy Kuznetsov, who's C- with Russia as A+. If I could find a C-rated scout with Russia as A+, then I would fire this one. So now I'll go through and do all of that at supersonic speed. So there we go, 17 contracts sent out. I now have only 3 scouts left on my staff after I fire this one here. Only 3 scouts left on board. Now we're going to go ahead and make sure that we get all of them signed on. Now that I think about it, I may have fired the wrong Liga scouts, but we'll see in a moment. The game's going to start offering you trades, salary cap, blah, blah, blah. Thank you very much. As soon as you start advancing a few days, shouldn't take more than 2 or 3 days to have everybody sign up. There's 11 out of 17. Let's go another day. And 17. There we go. All right. Now, back to the assign scout page. You'll notice everyone signed on, no problems, nothing, no hiccups, anything along the way. But now you see a lot of people are not in their right region. B-, B-, A-, things. People are not placed correctly. So what you got to do now is verify that you haven't made any mistakes. Because already I think I did make a mistake. I think I fired the wrong Liga scout at the end of my hiring phase there. When you're hiring 15, 16, 17 different scouts, it's understandable. You could mix a few up, because especially when you're hiring an OHL scout who's actually going to your QMJHL. So what you need to do now is verify that everyone is in the right region. So I go ahead and sort by region. I want to make sure I have all the right things. Do I have 2 Russia scouts who are A+? Yes. Do I have 2 Liga and 2 SHL? Hold on, I have 3 Liga and 1 SHL, because the game will just put them in whatever region they are good in. You have a couple options sometimes. Go ahead and put, so I have 1 C and 1 C-. So I may need to go and see if there's a better Liga scout out there, or SHL scout that is, as now I have, okay, 2 Liga, 2 SHL, who are both A+, good. But Corporate Carry, I might end up firing Corporate Carry. Extra Liga A-, NLA A, and Del A+. These are my 3 Europe scouts. No, they must be mixed up. Let me see here. No, this guy will actually be Del or NLA. This guy's A+ Del, A NLA. So actually, this is my Del, this is my NLA, and this, I'm assuming, is my Extra Liga. There you go. All right, so there we go. A+, A+, A+. Now to the USAs. I have 3 West and 1 East. So okay, let's fix this up again. This guy is actually my West or Central. This guy, A+ West, you could stay there. B West, that means he's actually my Central or my East. And this guy is also it could be in any of the 3. So let's go ahead and reorganize them. All right, the USAs are all taken care of. Now I have the QMJHLs, OHL, WHLs, all of that. So I have 3 in the queue right now, 2 A+ and 1 A. Oh, hold on, there must be a mistake here. Unless I do keep, sorry, this was my B-rated A guy in the queue, yeah. Just because he's A, that's not ideal, but he's B in overall, so he will stay in the queue. One of my other A+ QMJHLs, this guy could either be OHL or WHL. Let me check out my other guys. What were these guys again? This guy is A rated for the OHL. There weren't any other A's in the OHL, so he stays there. This guy, he's actually one of my QMJHL scouts. So now I should have Traverse and Levesque, who are my QMJHL scouts. Then Lalande and Gervais can be moved about. This guy will be one of my WHL scouts. And then this other guy, Gervais, was he an OHL scout? Yes. Alright, so that now brings me to 2 in the Q, 3 in the O, and then this last guy should be a dub if I calculated correctly, and there you go, Worrell. We will go to WHL. Shout out to Peter Worrell, legend. WHL, confirm, and there you go. So now I can reconfirm. Okay, by region, everyone's good. By region efficiency, I still have a couple of A's. One is a B-rated scout. That's totally fine. One of them is a C-rated scout. Is that ideal? No. Is that a deal breaker? No. But there's no other scouts who are also this highly rated. The next level would be a C- scout with an A+ OHL. I would rather the C-rated scout with the A OHL. Now I sort by overall. Corpicari, the SHL with A+. Are there any C-rated scouts who would be A+ in the SHL, or do I have to stick with that C- scout? Let's first start the investigation over in Nordic before we expand to everyone else. Do I have any SHL scouts that are A+ in here? Yes, I do. There's one, even one who's also A+ in Liga. But that's a C-. Nedved is an A-rated scout in the SHL and still is, A-rated region score in the SHL and still a C overall scout. So make sure you don't double hire because it'll say your staff is full. So Corpicari, I will go ahead and fire Rickard. And then once again, advance a few days to wait until that scout signs on. And there you go. I then return to the assigned scout screen, make sure that scout is in the right place. Sorting by location. Hold on. Back in Liga. Nedved, you got to go to the SHL. And there you go. Your staff is set for year number 1. So now that we have everyone in their proper location, we can start scouting. However, I'm going to simulate through the 2022-23 season, and we're actually going to scout in 2023-24. We're going to do that for a couple of reasons. Number 1, the ideal time to start your scouting is right at the beginning of the preseason. We've already simulated about a week into there, so we've missed scouting a couple of prospects. Those 2 prospects do make a difference over time, especially when every day counts from the start of the year all the way till the draft on June 23rd. The second reason is it will provide more generated prospects, which means a higher chance of demonstrating how you can find late gems. In the year number 1 draft, you're going to have a lot of real-life players. Keep in mind that any real-life player who's ranked outside of the top 10, top 20 out of the first round is not going to be anything special. In my draft class, I have Mishkov, I have Fantilli because those are created players. But if you're just playing in your own franchise mode, you're likely seeing Connor Bedard, Leo Carlson, other generated prospects like that guy Lupul, this guy Nikulin. Aside from that, but you have real-life guys, Benson, Jaeger, Dvorsky, Edward Sale, Cam Allen, etc., etc., etc. These are real players who have real potentials associated to them by the people who decide potentials. If I were to go to, let's say, a real-life league, like the WHL, and scroll deep into the let's say hundreds or so, this guy right here, who's this? Luke Shelter. No offense to Luke Shelter, but ranked 191 at 18 years of age. There's no way the game randomly has this guy as a medium elite prospect or a low elite prospect. No one went to a Portland Winterhawks game one day and said, this guy has crazy potential. If he was actually going to be a top prospect, or if he actually had top potential, he would be a top pick in the real world and in the game. There is no way that anyone outside like the first round who's a real player, if they have a real picture next to their name, there's no way that they have really any high potential. However, if you go into a league such as any of the USAs, USA West, USA Central, USA East, into Russia, into most of the SHL and Liga, for example, you want to be careful because in the SHL you have real players like Leo Carlson, but you also have 90% of these guys as generated prospects. But especially in the US and Russia, guaranteed every single prospect out of USA West, Central, East, and Russia are all generated, which means they could have crazy 5-star shooting out of the draft. They could have low elite potential late. They could have all kinds of things in the first few years. Later in the years of your franchise mode, guys from the WHL, OHL, QMJHL, they'll be the exact same thing, late gems and stuff like that. But in year number 1, especially year number 1 where there's so many real prospects, it's not that good of a draft because there's not all those late gems you'll get from the generated prospects. Starting in year 2 a little bit, then especially by years 3, 4, and so on, you're going to be seeing that. So for those reasons, I'm going to sim through this year with this class being auto-scouted. I'm going to show you how it's okay, but it still doesn't show you enough that you need to know when you're auto-scouting. And I'm also going to go to the year after this where we will actually get to see some more generated prospects. So for the moment, I'm going to sim through the entirety of 2022-23. I'm going to bring you to July 1st, show you how to sign some new scouts, and then we'll actually get to the scouting in 2023-24. So here we are at the 2023 draft. Shout out to the Maple Leafs on winning the 2023 Cup. LOL. Now let's check out the draft class. After it was fully auto-scouted. Now, the top players, never really anything to be worried about. Top players, they will always get fully scouted. At least the top players. We see medium elite, medium franchise, blah, blah, blah. Fantilli didn't get scouted just because he's a rest of world prospect, because he was created, and he's not able to get assigned to Michigan University or whatever. So that's just the only issue. But we start to see other things. Barlow, only 2 bars medium elite, playing in the OHL. Jaeger, only 2 bars medium elite, playing in the WHL. Benson, not uncovered at all. At all, a top 10 prospect in the WHL. No scouting. I have 2 scouts there. Makes no sense. Dvorsky, makes sense. Okay, he's an Allsvenskan. I didn't put anybody there. Okay. But still, Benson, Jaeger, Barlow, that makes no sense. Allen, 1 bar scouted. All these guys, 2 bars, 2 bars. Really sketchy and patchy. If I look and sort by potential, very few are fully scouted to elite. After the top 6 to Leo Carlson, that's it. Everyone else is 3 bars, which is good, or less. A lot of 2 bars, a lot of 1 bars for the elites. These guys could be medium elite gems in the 100+ rankings, but I have no way to know that. So now I'm going to show you how it's going to look when I actually do the scouting with my system. Now, before I do that, just quickly, when you move into the off season, what you can always do is make sure that your scouting staff is still the best that it could be. Starting on July 1st every year, just like when you're re-signing players on your team, you can re-sign scouts with expiring contracts, or actually let me pause here, make sure I have no scouts on my actual staff with expiring contracts. Go to the signed staff. You'll want to scroll through. If anyone pops up in the bottom left corner with the X that they need to re-sign, no, it would say re-sign in the bottom left corner, would pop up. But no, none of them are on expiring deals. Good to know. Now I can go ahead and simulate to July 1st and see if anyone is in staff free agency as their contract expired from other teams in the NHL. So blah, 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 click through all that, and now we're at July 1st, and I go to the higher staff screen. Let's see, usually in year number 2, there isn't usually much, but in years 3, 4, 5 plus, you'll see A-rated scouts dropping to staff free agency. Here you go. Here's a couple of B-minus rated scouts now. Not much, but 3 B-minus scouts. So this guy, bang, he's my new AHL scout. This person can be my new USA East. And this person, my new QMJHL. Bang, I'm going to sign these 3 new scouts. Now, you need to do this on July 1st, because if you wait, they will get snatched up. On July 1st itself, it says 0 teams interested. But if you were to simulate one day and go to July 2nd, it would say easy, like 5, 10, 15 teams interested. So you got to send these contracts ASAP. Remember, max contracts for the exact years that they want. So all the contracts are sent out. Let me just get a quick reminder. This guy was Q, then this is USA East and OHL. Q, USA East, OHL. Q, USA East, OHL. Q, C-rated, fired. USA East, fired. OHL, the lowest of the 3. They're all C-rated, so just take your pick, basically. Fired. Now I've sent out 3 contracts. I have 17 scouts, meaning 3 spots are open. Perfect. I will simulate a few days once again. Tom Green signs on. Lovely. Antoine Denis, merci beaucoup. And last one, Yahir Voros. There you go. So all three of those guys have signed on. I can now sim to next season, or I can go into my settings, change my draft class. Make sure you do that before the start of next season, blah, blah, blah. But I'm content. I have my staff. Let's sim to the start of next season and get this scouting underway. So now here we are at the beginning of a new season. It is September the 13th, 2023, and now your scouting will begin. I didn't want to do it in year one because of the scouts having to sign on. Plus, it starts at September 17th, I think. So when you get a fresh new season, it is September 13th. I will go ahead and go to the Assign Scout screen. Once again, double checking that everyone's in their right spot. Ooh, hold on, I see NHL Metro, blah, 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 stuff like that. So let's make sure we're on the right track here. 2 Dub, 2 OHL, 2 Q, 1 West, 2 Central. Oh, where's my USA East? That's who's missing. Is this my USA East? I remember him being at Tom Green. There he is, USA East. You could forget over the course of multiple days between you playing franchise mode. So you go ahead and send him to the USA East. As you'll see, for example, though, USA Central, 56 forwards, 35 defense, 12 goalies. USA West, USA East, almost nobody there. So that's why only 1 scout. And if you need to move a guy from the East over to the Central because everyone's already scouted, you could do that. There's way more players in the Central of USA than West and East combined usually. That's why I have 2 scouts there. So now, ladies and gentlemen, the moment that you've been waiting for, let's get this scouting party started. Let's start by sorting by the WHL, and here is the system that we will be using. Now, first and foremost, I have to share this image because this was the foundation of this video. Red Boy shared his strategy over in the Discord server back in November. And I said, okay, it sounds interesting, but I have my own system. I think I'm content with it. But other people started trying it. Other people started saying, whoa, you have to try this. I tried it. I saw a couple places maybe where I could tweak it a little. I did some tweaking, and now a few months later, I am ready to share it with all of you. So I show this kind of as a picture to be placed in a museum, as this was the foundation that started it all. But I'm going to share with you my little tweaks and how I have found it to be to go from 99% perfect to 99.99% perfect. For example, one way that I have it different is that my scout region breakdown is a little different. So follow along with what I'm doing. If you think that what you have works better for you, then that works better for you. But this is what I found. So first and foremost, you're going to want to choose your region and go ahead and press on scout specific players. Find prospects. To this day, it's been multiple NHLs. I have no clue whatsoever why this exists. Go discover some skaters who are late first round for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. What? All the prospects are already discovered. This isn't MLB or FIFA, where if I don't send a scout, the player won't exist and will never be found. The players all already are found. So find prospects. Old NHLs used to be like that. Go find the prospects. All of them have already been found. I want to scout them now. So some people have told me, oh, well, I do this, and it kind of gives me a general scouting over everybody. I don't find it works at all, personally. So, scout-specific players, I used to say that it was only potential comparison. Potential comparison is king. Scout this maybe 3-4 times per player until the draft, and there you go. Refine it for the players that you want, blah, blah, blah. That was a good system. There was nothing wrong with it. But again, this tutorial is to show you how to have everyone uncovered. If you want to still have some question marks and take some risks, on, oh, this guy's 3 bars, or take a risk and yes, he was, or oh, he was a bust. That can still work for you. If you want perfect, this is the system for you. You're going to start by doing scout playing style. And in the bottom right, bottom middle, you'll see the estimated date of when that report will be finished. 1 player can get scouted per day, or maybe a couple per day. The better your scout is, like A+ rated scouts could do 1 or 2 players in 1 day. This scout is taking 1 or 2 days per player as opposed to 1 or 2 players per day. So you want to go ahead and do all of this all the way down until October 1st, September 30th, around there. I usually go to October 1st when my scouts scouts are B and C rated. If my scouts are A rated, I go until maybe September 27th, September 29th. But I'm going to show you one uniform system. That is, go until October 1st. So I got until 157 in the WHL. I now pick back up at 166 with my second WHL player, and I do the same thing. I scout playing style all the way, as many players as I can get until it's October 1st. All the way down, all the way down, all the way down. Now, the one flaw I will say in the system is that if a player kind of misses the boat, like if I'm scouting all the way up until 240, which is already more than you probably need, but let's say this guy at 270 made a jump throughout the year, and now he's in the top 230s, well, now he's not going to get scouted as well because he missed round 1. This is round 1 of scouting, where I'm getting all the way until 200 plus. I should already count my blessings because I'm 40 above 200. Red Boy's system is that only around the top 200 get scouted. I push it a little bit in the top 250, 300 or so. So I go until October 1st. That gets me until 240 in the WHL. In a different league, it might get me a lot deeper. So now I do the exact same thing in the OHL, starting with my B- scout, because that scout is the highest rated one. And I do the exact same thing. I should be able to get more than 12 players scouted, though. With a C-rated scout, I can do 12 players. With a B- rated scout, look at the difference. Look at this difference. I can go all the way to 18 players scouted. So that's why it's super important to have scouts that are higher in overall. So I'll pick back up at 169 with my other OHL scouts. I'm definitely going to go deeper in the OHL because those scouts are more highly rated. But there's usually more prospects in the OHL anyways, so it makes sense to have 3 there. And there you go. This scout got me 16 players all the way to October 1st, and I'm at 262. Thankfully, in the OHL, I can go past 262. In the WHL, I had to stop at 240, but in the OHL, I have to go further. What if you're scrolling down like, oh, what number was it? Was it 262? Was it 257? You can go and right-click R3. Okay, currently being scouted, oh, not being scouted. All right, playing style, again, all the way down. If you have a player in year 2 who's 19 years of age, chances are that's a real player. There's a real picture. So I wouldn't be too worried about scouting them properly or not because they're not going to have high potential. But just to say, there you go. And then, see, now this guy only got 12 players scouted. I go until number 302. Great. So I'm going to go down through all my scouts and do this same thing, player style scouting until October 1st. Now, it could happen that there aren't enough prospects in a region, like here in the USA West. I do 11 prospects. I'm already at 649, and that's everybody. That's okay. It's just that you'll have a few down days. This scout won't be doing as much. From September 24th to October 1st, this scout won't be doing anything. Not a huge deal, and towards the end of the scouting, when, let's say, everyone in the USA East is fully scouted by February, you could move this scout to a different region and have that scout help out somewhere else where there's more prospects. So for the moment, just keep doing what you're supposed to be doing. And there you have it. Round 1 of the scouting is completed. Now, do keep a couple of things in mind. When you're scouting, you don't need to necessarily hold to only the top 16 players, like the first 16 players get scouted. Let's say, for example, I really wanted this guy Andronov to get scouted. I could say, okay, Lokitanov here, I don't need to know the player style of the goalie. I want to know his potential, I want to know his X factors, I want to know all that, but it wouldn't be the end of the world if I didn't know whether or not he was a hybrid or a butterfly. So maybe you can make some concessions. Say, okay, just for this round of scouting, I'm going to take off Lokitanov and put Andronov instead. You could try and, sorry, I'm putting a potential in comparison. You could try and make that rationalization in your head if you wanted. Another rationalization that I've done before is I'm late in the draft, I'm deep into the 200-300s, and I say, do I want to scout this guy who's 18 or this guy who's the same ranking, just a couple spots lower, and 17? I'd rather scout the 17-year-old. Usually it's sometimes between a 20-year-old and a 17-year-old. So those are a couple things you can keep in mind when you're scouting, but usually in the first round I just do the top 12, the top 16, the top 18, however many my scouts can do, and go from there. So that's round 1. I can go right here and make sure currently scouting, sort, everyone is currently says yes. The only one that says no is the guy who's traveling. technically, oh, he's not scouting yet. He's traveling in those 2 hours. When he gets there, then he'll be scouting. But as long as I see the names on the right, he's scouting. Everyone else says yes. Good. I can now go ahead and simulate up until October 1st. That is when the report is finished. So technically, I guess they finish on like the 30th, but if you go on the 30th, it'll still say, oh, there's 1 day left. So go until October 1st. That's when you can set your next round of scouting. So what's good is when you do this right at the beginning of the year, it's only covering a few days of the preseason. You're not even in the regular season yet, and we're going to go ahead and get round 2 started right away. So now that it's October 1st and round 1 is complete, you can go to round 2 of your scouting. Go back to the Assign Scouts screen. Once again, sort by region, get everything nice and organized. You'll see no one is scouting. No one is currently scouting. All of the reports are done. So now in round 2, what you will want to do is to move on from playing style. That's a good thing. You don't need to scout anything twice. Playing style's done. I can go now to strengths and weaknesses. Strengths and weaknesses will be scouted up until around November 10th. It will bring you until the same, it will bring you to scout the same number of prospects as you did previously. So if I go until November 10th, I go till 157, I pick up at 166 with the next scout, and I should get to the end of my players that I scouted. I shouldn't have any guys with question marks who are getting scouted. You'll see what I mean in just a second. Let me scroll down, strengths and weaknesses, all the way down, and there you go. I get to the end. November 10th brings me right to 240. The guys with question marks have not been scouted at all. If I have some extra time towards the end of like May and June, I'll try to scout them. But right now, I don't have the time to do it. So going until, at least for me, it's usually November 10th. It could be November 9th or November 11th, depending on maybe things are happening with the overalls of your scouts. But it should be November 10th. So now it's going to be the exact same thing. You're going to go through all of your scouts and scout all the same prospects that you just did for playing style. You'll now scout them for strengths and weaknesses until November 10th. So as you can see with this scout, it brings me to November 11th. If I take one off, I go until November 9th. If you have to make this choice, go with the date that comes first. Because if I come to November 10th and 18 out of 20 scouts are done, but one just isn't, needs one more day, it throws everything off. So I'll stop on November 9th, and my next scout will pick up at 257, and then we'll see what number of prospect that brings us to. So now it's kind of thrown off a little bit. Now, if I scout all the guys I previously scouted, it brings me till November 16th. So if that's the case, again, don't throw off all 20 of your scouts and the process you are doing just for a couple of 19-year-olds in the 300s. It would be better to take them off and scout again until November 10th. These two guys will be left off the report, at least for now, until you have more time or better scouts in the future. So for right now, you would just scout up until the 10th with this scout, and with the previous scout, it would be until the 9th. But another thing you got to keep in mind, and that's something that I'm seeing right now as I keep going, I'm starting to see it wasn't just 1 or 2 scouts who wanted to end on November 11th. It's starting to be that the majority of scouts are wanting to end on November 11th. So if that is the case, if it does end up that over time you're seeing, more and more scouts want to end on the 9th, more and more scouts want to end on the 12th, there's no shame in going back and refining what you did. Like I just said previously, November 10th is the goal, but it could be the 9th, it could be the 11th, as long as it's in that range. So I'm going to go back a little bit, I forced this scout to end on the 9th, but there was one more prospect that I had done the player style search for, but not the strengths and weaknesses search for. So you know what? I will add him in. And I'll say, okay, I'll go back and any report where I ended a bit on the 9th, I'll try and add another and end it on the 11th. No shame in doing that. Scouting requires you to be flexible and to say, okay, depending on the year, depending on this and that, my plan may have to slightly change. It's just a day, nothing crazy. But now by adding that one day, for example, in the USA Central, I now got to add 2 more prospects scouted. So it is worth it. And there you have it for round 2. And there you go. Once again, I was noticing more and more. As I said, I noticed more and more. November 11th was actually my magic day, not November 10th. At the beginning, I thought it was the 10th, but it was actually the 11th. For you, it could be the 9th, it could be the 10th. As long as you get the same prospects that were scouted in round 1, scouted in round 2, you're good to go. If you need to drop a couple to make it work, that's okay. But I wouldn't want to be adding any in round 2 who were not there in round 1 because they won't be scouted in the same way. Everyone's scouting, everyone has people in their report, good to go. Always make sure you confirm your report before you exit out with the scout back to the main screen, before you back to the franchise screen, that is. So now it's October 1st, and I want to go all the way until exactly November 11th. So we have now arrived at November the 11th. Round 2 is over, and round 3 may begin. How are the Canadians doing? 4-9-1. Yikes. Hate to see it, but life goes on. Let's go to Assign Scout, and now we should see all the reports have been completed. Beautiful. So November 11th was our magic day of the 9th, 10th, 11th range. Now we'll go back to scouting, and what we want to scout this time around is the skills assessment. If you went and looked at the draft class, like let's say I just look at one prospect right now, I see, he is fully scouted as a playmaker, and I see his strengths, I see his weaknesses, but if I press R1 to continue, I still cannot see the skills and the potential and all that. So slowly, everything is getting uncovered. And things such as the scout rank, which is at number 4, will become fully uncovered by time I scout the last 2 things, the skills assessment and potential and comparison. Because character assessment, you don't have to bother looking at that. That'll come with other stuff. Plus, doesn't matter as much, especially if morale's turned off. And as you scout potential and comparison, let's say your playing style was at 3 bars, that 4th bar will get uncovered at the same time. So I digress. Now we move on to the skills assessment. The magic date that you're looking for this time is around January 22nd. Even if it won't uncover them as much as these guys who are getting scouted all the way since round 1, they're only jumping in now in round 3. In the name of getting all your scouts on the same schedule, that's what I'll do. So as you continue to scout as well, you'll see some players creep in. The little green arrow next to them, they creep into the top whatever that you were scouting. This guy wasn't previously getting scouted, but now he jumped over like 4 other guys that were getting scouted. Now he does make that list. So yes, I will go ahead and scout him. Plus, doing so will allow me to hit that January 22nd date. So it was a weird little hiccup with the WHL, but in the OHL, QMJHL, it's showing me that January 22nd is my magic date. And there you go. Some were in the January 20th range, some in the January 24th, all of them between the 20th and 24th, I would say, with most of them being January 22nd. So again, as your scouts become all the same overall and stuff like that, it'll be easier to get the same date. Right now, my range of dates is about 4 days, the 20th to the 24th, but the 22nd is that ideal date. So right now, we're going to sim through round number 3 of the scouting and go until January 24th. All right, we've arrived at January 24th, and we are ready for round 4 of scouting. Now, what's interesting is that headed into round 4 of scouting, you likely already have many players who are fully scouted. I say many, but you definitely have a few. Because you already have a few that are fully scouted, you want to double check. You see that they have potential. Most of your players will not have it. But if I were to sort by potential, I would see that, hold on, this guy guaranteed low top 6. This guy guaranteed a couple of medium fringe starters. So I shouldn't say many, but there will be some who are fully scouted already. You just want to double check this because you wouldn't want to waste time scouting their potential if it's already been fully scouted. So that's something you have to check out when you go into the actual assigned scout. This will actually take a little extra time, but it's worth it because by not scouting the people who are already scouted, you get to scout players who actually need it. So now in this round of scouting, you're going to want to go until around the end of May / the start of June. I don't have an exact date because it depends on how many prospects in that region were already uncovered, how many are fully scouted, you don't need to look at them anymore. So I can't give an exact date, but it's late May, early June, because you want to have enough time to have a couple more weeks, 2-3 more weeks to do a final round of making sure everyone is scouted in round 5. If we're going to go start in the WHL as always. The first thing I want to do in round 4, it's time consuming. You don't have to do this if you can't be bothered, but the first thing I want to do is scroll through each player. On the right, you see summary and attributes. L1, R1, summary, attributes, summary, attributes. If the player has a third page, that means they have some of their potential uncovered already. So let's start scrolling through them and see if any of those players are here in the WHL. Well, here's one, Jan Spoonar, but only 1 bar elite. So that third tab is personality and potential. If that third bar, that third section doesn't exist, it means they have nothing uncovered yet. But if they do, you got to make sure that it's not fully scouted. Those 2 guys who did have it were only 1 bar scouted, so I'm not too worried. I would probably just go ahead, yeah, I'm already in the 200s by now. I would say I'm comfortable to do the potential and comparison. I'm going to do that all the way down the list until around the end of May, start of June. Something around, let's say May 28th for this first WHL scout, May 28th. The next scout will start at number 202. Let's go down. May 28th, let's say we stop there. Let's say guaranteed you say, okay, this guy's 19 years old. He's a real world prospect. He's in a D league, only 18 points through, as a 19-year-old through 39 games, whatever. I don't want to scout him. I'd rather go scout this guy who I had already scouted a little bit. You could definitely do that. That is up to your discretion. That is your job as the general manager. I'm going to just do it according to rank. I'm not going to actually look at any of that stuff. But if you wanted to, you absolutely could. Same for this guy. This guy is 20 years old, ranked 240, only has 11 points in 34 games in an E-rated league. Not going to happen. Not going to waste my time scouting him. So you can absolutely do that, and I would highly recommend it. So for the WHL, the magic day is May 28th. Now for the USA West, for example, even if I do potential and comparison for everybody, it only brings me to April 18th. So for these regions, USA West, USA East, NLA, Dell, Extraliga, those regions where you will be done sooner, as opposed to May 18th, April 18th, or even this one, this is going to be much sooner. This one's going to be done by April 3rd. You want to keep that in mind. You got to also keep in mind, where is that scout also useful? Green is A+ in USA East, but he's also B- in the OHL, B in the Q, B in USA West. So you may want to think about moving him to scout other regions. If every single player in his region is fully scouted and it's April, there's no reason to keep him there. You may as well make him useful somewhere else. So keep that in the back of your head. And it's very interesting. Like this guy who wasn't even scouted in terms of the first round, I don't believe. Here he is fully uncovered. So sometimes you'll get surprises like these just from your guys scouting in your region. It seems as though other players who you didn't necessarily assign him to are getting some scouting done on them. Lionel Georgievic, I'm not sure if this guy was even scouted at all a single time, but here he is fully unscouted, low top 6. So I don't even need to scout this guy. He's fully uncovered without me having done anything. And there we go. Scouting's done for round number 4, potential and comparison. My magic date ended up being about May 29th for most of these guys. May 26th, May 24th, May 31st for a few of them. But May 29th ended up being the magic day for the majority. The magic day always changing, but as of now, this year, near number 2, for these scouts, that was pretty much the magic date. However, for some other scouts, the date was in April. USA West, April 18th. USA East, April 3rd. I think that was it. April. So USA East and West, April 3rd is the first date. I want to sim until that first date. That first date is when I will begin round 4.5 of scouting. All right, here we are now at April 3rd to kick off round 4.5 of scouting. My USA East scout is done his assignment, so I can go ahead and reassign him to Liga. Now, unfortunately, the USA East guy obviously will not have a good rating over in Liga. It's actually an E rating. Not good at all. The time it'll take this guy to scout 1 player would be the time that it takes a Liga scout to scout like 5 players. So it's so much slower, but it's better than him just sitting around and doing nothing. If you can get the player fully scouted with full accuracy, there's no chance of you getting told lies. You can't have a player 4 bar scouted and then it ends up being fake. it'll just be slower to get to that 5 bar, and I would rather get something than nothing. So there you go. To go from April 3rd to June 1st, 2 months of scouting, I'm only going to get 5 guys scouted. Are they going to be fully scouted? Probably not. Is it going to be amazing? Probably not. Especially with the absolute worst rating of E. But, again, it's better than doing nothing. Now, my USA West scout has done his assignment on April 18th, so we'll simulate up until then. And here we are. Beautiful. Here he is, USA West. I forgot to mention, the guy in the USA East, I was only able to move him because all of the USA East was fully scouted. Same thing in the West. If I come and look in the USA West, 4 bars lead, 4 bars top 6, 4 bars, 4 bars. Everybody's 4 bars scouted. So that's why I'm able to move him. Not just because his report is over, but because his report is over and every player is fully scouted. There's literally no reason to keep him where he is any longer. So USA West will also go over to Liga. C-rated there, that's cool. And we'll go ahead and scout some more of those players at the bottom. Again, these are question mark players, guys who won't get fully scouted by time June rolls around. But again, it's better to have some guys, I'll take some guys at 2 bars scouted just to say we have them. I'll go until, let's say, May 23rd, just to get these 3 guys scouted just for kicks. Better than nothing, you never know who might show up. It's better than nothing. Now we can go ahead and simulate up until May 31st, which will be the last day of any of our scouting reports, even though most of them are done on the 28th. You could go ahead and stop on the 28th, do most of them, then come back on the 31st and do more, but I prefer just doing it all in one swoop, unless you really want to be super, super meticulous, which is your prerogative. And here we are. Shout out to the Avalanche and the Senators, who are in the 2024 Stanley Cup Final, by the way. And now headed into round 5 of scouting, what I'll want to do is, again, go and look at the draft class first. Right away, you're going to be shocked to see so much uncovered. But there's always 1 or 2 players hiding out there that aren't fully uncovered. You'll start to, oh my goodness, look at this! Look at these results! Look at these results. Everyone is fully scouted so far. I want to find some guys who are trying to hide out over here. Like this guy, but is he in a different region? Allsvenskan. See, you could go ahead and send a scout now in June to Allsvenskan to get this guy uncovered at 71. This guy, Bates, in Liga. Okay, he's only 2 bars. So of regions that we've scouted, every single player up until Central Scouting rank 70 is fully scouted by the end of May. I have 1 guy in Liga. You can keep track of that. 1 guy in Liga. I have 1 guy. Also have 2 guys in Liga. Anybody else? Look at all this fully uncovered. 3 guys in Liga. Okay, they're struggling over in Liga. Aside from that, everyone is pretty much fully scouted. Just some more Liga guys. So, and even a little bit of Russia. So I'll go back through my scouts now for round number 5. So in Russia, I knew there was a couple of players that I had to go and check out. If I don't remember who they are, I can always, again, just click on the player, go down to personality, and then scroll until I find them. Some medium elite there, amazing. There they are, a couple of them right here. Potential comparison. I could do 1 more. You can probably get 3 guys per scout if you want to go just until the draft. So if I can find 1 more, there you go, 1 bar elite, perfect. So these 3 guys can get scouted until June 22nd. Anyone else in Russia? Yes, here's 1 right here, perfect. You can keep scrolling down if you have anyone else you want to toss in. Or if there's nobody, you could scout brand new players. Do I have room for 1 more? No, I'll bring it to June 26th. So these 2 guys will get scouted at 150 and 165. And that's what you'll do for every single scout. You'll go through their region. You'll scroll through if there's anyone who still has some uncovering to do. And if there is no one, I would recommend you go all the way to the bottom. Go find all the guys who are barely scouted or who are just fully question marked. And just scout 2 or 3 of them until June. You may as well use your time wisely. And don't forget, we got to send 1 guy to Allsvenskan as there is that 1 random prospect. But for now, we'll just go ahead and scout the players who have been scouted, but for some reason are not fully uncovered. And then someone like, this guy with the E rating. With the E rating, I'll send him to Allsvenskan later, and he can do the scouting on that 1 player. I'll do some. You'll see during my fast forwarding that it'll get done. Well, there's like 20 minutes condensed into about 10 seconds or so I hope that you enjoyed that. Every scout is doing 1, 2, or 3 prospects, basically, just getting towards the draft. Everyone that I want to know, as you already saw, like the top 70, top 100, even most of the top 250 are already fully scouted, so it's not a big deal. At this point, I'm now comfortable to go ahead and simulate all the way to the draft, and then we can finally check out what the draft class looks like. Now, as we sim towards the draft, the one thing that will pop up is the draft interview option, whatever you want to call it. So when it comes to draft interviews, you definitely want to do them if there are some prospects who have some things uncovered still haven't been uncovered, that is. I'm using the 2024 draft class. I went into the future for a second, and I just want to show you how that would look. Let's say I knew nothing about that player. If I know 3 bars and then it gets uncovered a little bit, it's hard to really tell. So let's say I know nothing about this guy who's going first overall. If I go and interview him, I can ask him 3 questions. The question I want to ask him first is, what's your play style? Instead of scouting him for multiple days, he can tell me right away, buddy, what's your play style? And he'll tell me, come on, he is a power forward. Great. Now, what's your readiness? That's already going to tell me what his overall is like. I'm ready to make the NHL right away. Bang. He's going to be around the 80 overall range. New topic. I have one more question. This is kind of like a wild card. You can do what you like. If you have morale on, you can go with personality. I'm going to go with skills right here. I'm going to ask him his strengths. I want to know if he has that A+ shooting and all that. So what are your strengths, buddy? You're a power forward. Do you have that 5-star shooting? Yes, I have that shot. Great. Okay. Thank you. End the conversation. Takes so long. Thank you. Strength, shooting, NHL ready, player style, power forward. Plus, a little bit of his potential does get uncovered as well, as I already know, bang, 2-bar medium elite, just from that interview. I can see. Here's a little bit about his superstar ability, zone ability, Sean Couturier, NHL ready, shooting, senses, physical. It's definitely not enough to know everything that I would want to know, but if you have a player who's almost fully scouted, that interview will be enough to put you over the top and get that player fully 4-bar accurately scouted. Also keep in mind that you're allowed to ask up to 3 questions on up to 3 players, so use your interviews wisely. Last thing to touch upon while I'm still in the future here in 2025 now, let's go ahead and look at the pro scouting. Now, as I've mentioned, as NHL has changed over the years and it doesn't really matter anymore that you have a bad line fit as long as you have good X factors, chemistry and scouting and making sure this guy fits your first line, your second line, it doesn't really matter anymore. So it's kind of defeated the purpose of me wanting to do any professional scouting. That's why I don't really have any. But if you were to be a professional scout, let's say I send this guy his US NHL Pacific, I'll send him there, he's A-rated, great. There are a couple things I can do. First of all, I could go to the Assign Scout screen, click on him, and say either scout specific players in the Pacific, scout a group of players, or scout team lines and strategies. If I scout specific players, I'd say, okay, give me the Anaheim Ducks, whatever, Edmonton Oilers, and then I go ahead and confirm assignment. From there, I can then choose players, quick or complete. Quick or complete. I always do complete, so it just tells me everything as opposed to it's quick, it's not fully there, I gotta do 2 quicks to equal 1 complete, forget it. I always do complete, and they only take about maybe 2, 3, 4 days each depending on how highly rated your scout is. So I could go ahead and get complete scouts on each of these players individually from this screen. Second of all, I could go back again and I could go to scout a group of players. I could say, give me a complete report on all players on Anaheim who are in this age range, this position, this player role, this potential for this many weeks. Of course, the more weeks you do it, the more accuracy you get. I could do that if I'm not exactly sure on who I want. Or I could do scout team lines and strategies. Honestly, I don't really see much value in this because no matter what that team's strategy is, I'm not allowed to change my team's strategy. Your coach has a strategy and it cannot change unless you fire that coach and hire a different one. So it really doesn't matter what strategy a team uses because I can't adapt my team to it. So it doesn't really matter in my opinion. Now, those are the 3 options you could do from the Assign Scout screen. Or perhaps, let's say you're looking for a player, you're in the player search, you're on proposed trade for whatever reason. Let's say you're here. I want to scout Jamie Drysdale. Make sure it's the NHL season. They're in the NHL. It's an NHL scout in the Pacific, not the AHL, anything like that. I can pin this player to my watch list by pressing triangle. And now, come on, I'm not sure where the pin goes. It used to be an eyeball that came up, not there anymore. Okay, so it's pinned to my watch list. He's pinned. I can go and look on my watch list, or I can just look right here. I can also click on the player, R3, and then go ahead and press triangle again to scout the player from this screen. I can say, give me a quick or complete report. Depending on which scout you want to use, I only have one in that region, so it has to be that one. Confirm, and there you go. When I come back in a few days, I'll be able to know what's my pro scout assessment. Does he fit my deep pairing one? Does he fit my penalty kill lines? This used to be important, but it isn't really important anymore. Last but not least, if I have a player who pinned to my watch list or whatever else, if I want to access that watch list, I need to scroll down to player search. For some reason, there's not a watch list. Got to go through something else. Go to player search, click on watch listed, and then you'll see, there's Jamie Drysdale on my watch list. So again, pro scouting could be interesting. Used to be pretty useful, now not so much with X Factors taking over everything in terms of line chemistry, but if you are interested in doing pro scouting with 1 scout or 4 scouts or more or whatever, that is how you would do it. Just be careful, as it will take away from the amount of amateur scouting that you can do for, in my opinion, very little, if any, benefit. Once that's all done, we can go towards the draft itself, and now here we are at the draft. On draft day, you should have just about everyone fully scouted. Like I said, in year 2 is not the deepest draft class, but just forget about looking at the potentials. Look at the accuracy of those potentials. At the top, you have your medium elites, your medium top 4s. Everyone fully 4-bar scouted all the way until, where's the first guy who's not fully scouted? Is it probably the guy from Allsvenskan going to be the first guy? And there we go. The guy from Allsvenskan, we only know 1 bar. Unfortunately, that's all we know about him. But aside from that, the guy Bates went up to 3 bars. That's great. Then we're back to 4 bars. 4 bars all the way down. 1 bar medium for this guy. I'm not sure whatever happened to him. Didn't work out. The computer says he's a bust as well. AI says that he's a bust. So, okay. But lots of fully scouted, even into the deeper rounds with lower scouts. Imagine with A-rated scouts in a deep draft class. Just these guys are seeing, okay, a few that are 1 bar, a few that are 1 bar here and there, but really in the grand scheme of things, look how much full accuracy you have in the 180s, in the 200s. Now it's going to get a little spotty down here when you're looking at the guys who are in the deep of Russia we couldn't get to, who are in the deep of the USA Central that we couldn't get to. Those are the guys we never even ended up looking at. But anyone that you look at with this system will be scouted, and scouted 3 or 4 bars by the draft. Look at these fully scouted guys in the 200s just because we had gotten to them. Now, if I sort by potential, I can go ahead and find some gems while I'm drafting. Medium elite at 14th, great. Medium elite guaranteed at 67th, amazing. At 69, yes sir. And what about some low elites out here? Some guaranteed low elites? Oh yeah. Guy at 26, a guy at 99 who's a gem. Guaranteed low elites. Some other guys I could take some chances on who are 2 bars, who are 1 bar, but many guarantees. And at the very least, even if I'm not taking a risk on somebody, I just know what they are. And these guys in the 70s are guaranteed top 6 forwards. Let's see, low top 6 at 160, 132, 188. Guaranteed low top 6 forwards. So amazing accuracy in this draft class. So in the end, here's what you've discovered. This player has medium elite potential. He is a power forward. These are his strengths. These are his weaknesses. These are his skills. A+ shooting, for example, basically means 5-star shooting. And also, what is his similar style in terms of players in the NHL? This player is similar to Sean Couturier. And his NHL ETA, very important. Personality also there, and his scheme fit also there. But if your morale is off, doesn't really matter. And if all that really matters for line chemistry is X factors, then you don't really need to think about scheme fit either that much. NHL ETA is extremely important because this gives you a little bit of a glimpse into what that player's overall is. If they are NHL ready, in my experience, that player will be at the very least a 77 overall. Usually, especially if they're a top 5 player, in the 79-80 to 82-83 overall range. In my personal experience, I've never seen a drafted player higher than 84 overall. I think I'm like really going in the archives. I think in like NHL 11, I may have had a 90 overall goalie in the first round. But I'm talking like since NHL 18, when I've been making franchise mode videos, I've never seen a player in the draft, I don't think, higher than an 84 overall. Maybe there was an 85 once, but you're not going to be getting anything higher than that. So if the player says, if the player NHL ETA, if that player is NHL ready, you can pretty much guarantee if they're a top 5 pick that they're 79, 80 overall plus. And if it's later in the draft, they're likely 77, 78, 79, somewhere in that range. If you get a player who's 1 year away, let's say Kivihara, is he 1 year away? He's 3 years away. This guy's going to be somewhere in the 60 overalls. Let me scroll through some other ones here. 1 year away, you're likely in the 70 to 74 overall range. It's not often that you have a player who's 75, 76. It's kind of like a weird gray zone. You'll probably have a guy who's 74 overall, something like that. 2 years away, you're in the high 60s, could be 67 to 69 or so. 3 years away, you're looking at 60 to 66. And when you start looking at 4 or 5 years away, we're talking about 50 overall, all the way as low as 48 overall if a player is 5 years away. I've seen 48 to somewhere in the mid 55s, 50s or so if a player is 5 years away. So remember, in terms of trade value, potential is king. Keep in mind that, especially for a top 5 pick, NHL ready is much more valuable than 2-3 years away. Not always a lock, because you could have a player that's like late in the first round, early second round, that says NHL ready, you draft them, they're a 78, and then they're super hard to develop. In my experience, and in the experiences of many others, you'll have players that are drafted as a 77, 78, and then they never really develop. I would rather take a player with high potential and is 3 years away, and let's say medium elite 66 overall, than a guy who's medium top 6, 77 overall out of the draft, because they'll likely never budge much higher than 77 overall. So when you head into your draft, you keep all of those things in mind, and you also want to check your draft board before you start your draft. Your draft board, especially before the draft, because throughout the season it'll give you an idea of your picks, your projected picks, but before the draft it'll tell you exactly where you're picking. Round 1, pick 4, Canadiens first round pick. Round 2, pick 32 with the Avalanche second round pick. So you want to keep this in mind, especially if you're using your own scouting system. Like, let's say you don't want to waste your resources on a guy who's ranked 30 because you're only drafting at 4 and then somewhere in like the 60s after that. You could try and tailor it to say, okay, I'm only going to put focus on guys who are around my pick. I wouldn't recommend that because then you don't know when you want to trade up for somebody, for example. But let's start the draft now with all those things in mind. Not much to look at after I've already explained most of what everything means and like NHL ETA, etc. So in the draft, if a team has, let's see, the little green bullseye next to the number, little green bullseye in the top left corner of the Oilers' 10th overall pick, that means that draft pick is on their trade block, and it will be easier for you to acquire it. You'll still have to give up a lot of trade value for a top pick, but it would be easier to acquire, for example, that 10th pick that is on the block than this 11th pick that is not on the block. If you want to trade for a top 3 pick and none of them are on the block, it is not going to be easy, especially if trade difficulty is set to hard. If it is on the block, then it'll be a bit more, that team will be a bit more reasonable. So let's sim to pick number 4. You see the first overall pick was an 80 overall medium elite, 78, 77. Now here we are with the 4th overall pick. If you would like, you could take a timeout, you can think about it, make a trade, all kinds of different things. Or you can say, if this was my personal draft, I would definitely take this guy, the generated player. He's 17, he's a gem, he has A+ shooting, he's 1 year away, similar to Mike Gartner. Doesn't usually mean much when you're looking at player style. If you see Wayne Gretzky, you definitely want to draft that player. But aside from that, I wouldn't put too much stock into it. Clark Caswell is 1 year away as well. Yeah, I would definitely take Sven Fast, as he is a gem. He's 17, he's medium elite, he's already 1 year away at this age as well, so I would definitely go ahead and draft him. 73 overall, medium elite, and he has 3.5 star shooting, 86 accuracies, and he has these zone abilities, X factors. Honestly, that's a bit weak for the usual top 5 picks. Usually your top 5 is all in the high 70s or plus overall. But again, in the first few years, it's going to be a little bit weaker. Next guys to go are in the 70s, and you're already dropping to the 60s by pick number 6, 7, etc. So you can always sim to next pick, sim to next round, sim the entire draft, just sim one single pick. You can view the draft class, call a timeout when it's your selection, adds 5 minutes to the clock. If the clock runs out, you'll get auto-drafted. You don't want to do that. Keep in mind that if you do want to trade up for a player, let's say you want to trade for, let me find somebody, okay, this guy low elite, oh, I really want this guy Kennan's low elite, and I want to trade up to get him. You could bank on him not getting drafted much earlier than his NHL, his central scouting ranking. That's what's unfortunate about NHL AI, the other GMs. They won't really go off the board. This guy, maybe if the team before goes for forward, and then this defenseman's on the block, still on the list, maybe they take him. A team takes him at 25 or 24, but there's no chance this guy Kennans goes at 17, 18, 19. He won't go much higher than 26 or much lower than 26. So if I really want Kennans, I would probably trade for pick 24 and then go ahead and draft him. I wouldn't have to be scared and say, oof, I should probably go for 21 or 20. The AI does not reach unless, let's say, the next 6 picks were all defensemen and he was the only forward. Maybe there would be something like that. But if it's a mix of forwards and defense up until that guy, yeah, you could definitely trade for pick 23, 24, 25 even maybe, and get him with pretty high certainty. So you want to go make your next pick now, maybe. Let's go all the way to pick number 64. You see, okay, some other guys went here, low top 6. You can see their overalls, their potentials. I like being able to see that, to know who got a good steal and who didn't right away. I'm going to definitely go ahead and take this guy who's medium elite. And there's another guy who's medium elite right after, so I would definitely trade for that guy too. Vyacheslav Ulanov, 6'5". I'd go back to round 2, or you could go on the little thing at the bottom and scroll through. He is medium elite, great, but I want to see his overall. He is a 56 overall, so definitely going to take a little bit of time to grow, but great to have that potential in your system for your trade value, etc. So let's go ahead and just sim the entire draft now. I'm not going to go ahead and do everything. So you make your picks, you come to the end, it gives you a summary of your picks that you made, at what pick that you took them. You can go ahead and scroll through by team or by round if you would like, and then you can exit, and now you have the option to sign those draft picks. You simulate 1 day forward to the re-sign phase. You have some coaches who are expiring. I do have some scouts who are expiring, so I'd have to go to assign scout, and I would want to scroll. In the bottom left corner, re-sign scout. Offer the max contract. I usually go max contract -1, but if the budget doesn't matter, then it doesn't matter. But they would accept a little less, as opposed to in free agency, where you definitely want to offer the max. And then now in the re-sign phase, if you wanted to, you could sign your prospects. Now, keep in mind a very important rule about signing your prospects. Go to unsigned. If your prospect was playing in a Canadian hockey league and you sign them and they are 19 years of age or younger, I think sometimes 20 as well, maybe it depends on their birthday, but guaranteed if they're 19 or younger and they're from a Canadian hockey league, let's say Cam Allen, who was drafted here, and he's from the Guelph Storm, if I sign him to a contract, it's almost useless because he cannot play in the AHL. He either has to play in the NHL or back in juniors. So if I am not going to play him in the NHL, there is no point in me signing him. But if the player is from USA West, USA Central, or any of the European leagues, you can sign him and he will come to the AHL right away. That's not how it is in the real world. But here, because they don't have the rights to sending them back to wherever university they played in or whatever else, you can sign them and play them in the AHL right away. So Sven Fost, who came from the SHL, I think it was, or Liga, if I signed him, I could put him on the Laval Rocket in the AHL right away. Cam Allen, if I sign him, I cannot put him. I get a lot of questions like this in the comment sections, usually saying, where's this player? He disappeared. Why can't I call him up? It's because he's in the juniors. If the player is not on your NHL roster to start the season, salut la visite. He's done. He's in the juniors for the entirety of that season. But if he's a European player, you can sign him and play him right away. You can go ahead and sign them to their ELC, their entry-level contract. It's always 3 years. It's always two-way. Pretty much just give them what they're asking for. You don't want to lowball them. They'll always accept if you give them exactly what they're asking for. Plus, it doesn't make a big difference to just play around with pennies. They'll be in the AHL anyways. And the good news is you won't be burning a year of their ELC if you sign them and play them in the AHL at the age of 17, because the game realizes that really in the AHL there are rules that you can't have 17-year-olds playing in the AHL. In the real world, you have to be 18 years of age or older. So if I were to sign this guy fast as a 17-year-old to a 3-year entry-level deal, play him in the AHL next season, when I come to the year after, 2025-26, he will still have 3 years on his entry-level contract, as opposed to someone else. Let's say Cam Allen was a European prospect, or even Yarventi, he's a European prospect who's 19. If I sign him and play him in the AHL, by next season, he'll have 2 years left on his ELC. One of those years will get used. Or I could wait all the way until they are UFA eligible and just sign them then, thus allowing them to go back to Europe and play and develop on their own team while they are unsigned. So I'm not going to go break down into player growth. That would be another video in and of itself. But personally, I don't like to sign my prospects until they're at least in the 70 overalls, my European prospects especially. I'd rather have them play top minutes in Europe than come to the AHL as a 65 overall and play bottom 6 minutes and not have anything going for them. So all that to say, just be careful of when you sign your prospects and be aware of what league you drafted them from. So at this point, we take it from the top once again. We can sim to free agency, sim to July 1st. The scouts we already had are going to re-sign. That's great, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to keep them. Sven Fost, welcome aboard. We're going to make sure that we maintain the same staff that we had from last season, and we're going to see on July 1st, are there any new scouts that we would like to hire, just like we did last offseason. I'm curious now, by the 2024 offseason, now what kind of scouts are available in the hire staff screen. Go to hire scouts, and we see, drumroll please, some A-rated scouts. There we go. So by year number 3, technically the second off season, but year number 3, because there's 22-23, 23-24, now 2024-25, we are seeing lots of A-rated scouts. So once again, I would have an overhaul of my staff. This is my new OHL scout, A+, bang, he's AHL, I'm making him OHL. This guy would probably be my new USA East scout, A-rated USA East A-, perfect. I would have another overhaul of my staff now. And that is just about it, ladies and gentlemen. From here, you rinse and repeat for another offseason of getting better scouts, then sending everyone out once again when the new season begins on September 13th. Rounds 1 to 5 of scouting to get everyone uncovered as much as possible. And as the years go on, and there's the more gems to find with your better scouts, it just gets that much crazier. Your franchise will be loaded with talent and potential and prospects that will grow. Again, it's almost game breaking in a sense, but I hope that it will be helpful for you in your franchise mode playing experience. If you did enjoy this tutorial, be sure to leave a like, as well as consider subscribing, as we're doing franchise mode on NHL 23, MLB The Show 23, breakdowns and analysis of the real world of hockey, and much, much more here on the channel. So if you enjoyed this, I'm sure you'd enjoy the rest of what we do over here. It's a great community. We're a few hundred over on the Discord server. We're almost at 6,000 subscribers here. What a journey it's been, and I appreciate everyone who's been adding into the grand collective as we've gone throughout the years. And looking forward to next season's scouting tutorial again as we continue to refine our methods. A big thank you once again to Red Boy, who created the foundation of this method. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for taking the time to watch. Hoping that it was helpful. Leave a comment if you have any suggestions or questions of your own, and I look forward to seeing you once again in the next one.